Hey everybody, I'm back. I want to get started on the topics that I have. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Idaho 4 case, of course, Bryan Kohberger. I want to talk about some of the things that I read in the statement by Corporal Brett Payne. He works for the Moscow Police Department, and I just want to highlight a few things that's in his statement. And then I want to start talking about Ted Bundy. I've been watching some old videos and reading some of the um, victims that are alive, some of their statements, and I'm starting to put some things together now. I could have easily went and said, what would a serial killer, what are some of their traits, right? But I like to go a little bit more in depth into individual serial killers. And I want to highlight some of those things. The reason I'm going to do that is because you can see similarities in behavior. And remember, this is about learning the mindset of a killer, a stalker, someone that would be capable of these heinous acts that happened in the Idaho 4 case. And I'm kind of thinking about Ted Bundy and the two murders at the Chi Omega house and the two victims that were harmed but were still alive. I'm thinking about that. I'm comparing behaviors and I'm trying to form thoughts about the mindset of a person or persons that would do something like that, that type of crime, just the sheer violence of it. What would that person be thinking? How would they have been raised? What was their family life like? What are their values? What are their goals? Are they family oriented? Do they believe in family relationships? How are they in society? Do they blend in or are they wearing a mask? So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about. So let's get started because I honestly don't have a lot of time with some of my devices that I'm using today. So I'm gonna get to, um, I was going to start off with a statement by Brett Payne, but because of the need to try to read this document before I'm out of energy, I'm going to start with the ABC News article. The article is titled Chi Omega Survivor of Ted Bundy Murders. I was asleep when evil opened the door and attacked me. Okay. So I'm going to play the video after I read it. In January 1978, the Florida State University campus in Tallahassee was pretty safe and secure, according to Ray Crew, for the university's police department at the time. It was not unusual to, at 3 a.m. in the morning, to see people walking back and forth across campus because they felt safe, he told ABC News. Kathy Kleiner was a member of Chi Omega and living in the sorority's house in 1978. She said her parents felt that her living at the sorority house was much safer than living in the university's dormitories. Being in Chi Omega was a wonderful part of my life. It would be like having 40 sisters, said Karen Chandler, Kleiner's roommate. Across the U.S., however, authorities and residents were grappling with the unmanageable news that convicted kidnapper and suspected killer Ted Bundy had escaped from Colorado in 1977. Bundy had been charged with the murder of Karen Campbell in Colorado when he crawled through a hole in the ceiling of his cell and escaped. It was his second escape. Previously, he jumped from a courthouse second-story window and been on the lam for 4 days in June of 1977. This time, though, Bundy got a lot further, eventually ending up in northern Florida. He took flight to Chicago, took an Amtrak train to Ann Arbor, drove south to Atlanta, and hopped a Trailways bus to Tallahassee, said Kevin Sullivan, author of The Bundy Murders, A Comprehensive History. Sullivan told ABC News that after Bundy disappeared, detectives said he's going to kill again. A lot of suspects they're going to try to continue to commit crimes, unfortunately. It's just a matter of time. We don't know where or when, but he will kill again. So true. The Chiomega house in the early morning hours of January 15, 1978, sometime between 3 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. An intruder, later identified as Bundy, broke into the Chiomega house carrying some sort of wooden club. Who was on routine patrol that morning with his partner. They were 2 blocks from the sorority house when a call came over the radio, he said, so the officers drove over. As they stepped in the house, the girls were yelling, upstairs, upstairs, and there was a lot of crying. At the top of the stairs was a girl named Karen Chandler, and she was down on the floor, and she was bleeding quite badly from head injuries, he said. Chandler told ABC News that pretty much every bone in her face had been broken. She also had a broken arm. I asked her, Chandler, what had happened. She said there was a loud banging noise. What was she said she heard? She made mention about her roommate, Kathy Kleiner, who said when he entered Chandler's bedroom, he found Kleiner. Her jaw was actually hanging off one side, he said. It was only one hinge was still attached. She was totally incoherent and in shock. Kleiner said she remembered lying on her bed and trying to talk to say anything or just scream. But she could. My jaw was broken in 3 places, she told ABC News. The 2 women had been brutally beaten by Bundy before he fled. Chandler and Kleiner had not been Bundy's only victims in the Chiomega house. He beaten and strangled Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy to death, and there was a bite mark. I knocked on the door for Margaret Bowman's room and didn't get a response. Cruz said, I opened the door and there was a huge spray of blood up the wall. I shut the door so the other girls wouldn't see. Excuse me. After the attack, Sullivan said Bundy traveled 4 or 5 blocks away to a house on Dunwoody Street where Cheryl Thomas at Florida State University was asleep. Bundy goes to the Dunwoody house residence. Debbie Zuccarelli lived on one side of the house that Bundy next entered, and Thomas lived on the other. I woke up to this loud pounding. It was just a real loud banging sound. We could hear Cheryl moaning, whimpering. I called Cheryl. We could hear the phone ringing because the wall was so thin, but she wasn't answering her phone, Zuccarelli said. Zuccarelli called the police, and when officers arrived, they found Thomas on the floor, bloody and beaten. Thomas told ABC News that she learned Bundy had crawled through the window in her kitchen, which was beside her bed. He had warning holes over his face that had eye holes cut in, and a knot tied at the top, she said, referring to pantyhose. He pulled that off, and that was dropped on my floor. If I did not have my neighbors right next door to hear something, I don't think I would have survived. It was that close. Thomas said that a few days later, she woke up in the hospital with her parents nearby. She said she had no idea what happened to her. The police really wanted me to be able to identify who had attacked me because it would have helped them out tremendously. So I felt very bad about not being able to remember, she said. Chandler, who was hospitalized in an intensive care unit, said she could remember flashes of things. Kleiner said her mother had told her that 2 of her sorority sisters had been killed in the attack. My reaction was, like, that's not right. That didn't happen. That just didn't happen. They're fine, she said. It wasn't fair. They were both beautiful. Excuse me. They were both beautiful, wonderful people, and I was mad. I was mad that this person was allowed to come in and hurt us. There's no reasoning. I was asleep in my room. I was safe. I was sound. I was asleep, and yet evil opens the door and attacked me. Excuse me. Bundy is arrested in Florida. Former Young County Sheriff Ken Costaris, who helped investigate the Tallahassee murders, said he's spoken to authorities out west who've given him Bundy's name. Obviously, I didn't think that was possible. The abduction in a car didn't fit. Casares told ABC News, using shorthand for modus operandi, a method of doing something. The MO of potentially abducting some person and taking them somewhere, perhaps in the woods, murdering them, they didn't fit. So what we had was fresh murder in the house, so I was somewhat dismissive. Sullivan, author of the Bundy said that Florida did not match the Bundy of the Northwest. If you were here, if you were to hear of this attack and you were familiar with Bundy crimes in Utah and Colorado, you wouldn't think it was the same person because it was a frenzy, he said. About 3 weeks after the child Mega murders, Bundy abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach outside her junior high school in Lake City, Florida. Bundy murdered the young girl and left her body near Suwannee State Park. Kimberly is believed to have been his last victim. In February of 1978, Bundy was apprehended by chance when a Pensacola police officer noticed a suspicious car loitering late at night. Bundy pretended he was someone else and showed the officer a stolen driver's license. The car had been stolen. The car had stolen plates, and Bundy was in possession of stolen credit cards. After 2 days in custody, Bundy finally revealed his true identity. Detectives started to wonder whether Bundy was connected to the vicious attack at the Chayamega sorority house that had left Bowman and Levy dead, and two sorority sisters badly injured. After his arrest, reporters learned that Bundy, one of the FBI's 10 most wanted and sought for questioning more than 30 murders, had lived at the Oaks, a roomy house just a few blocks from the Chayamega house. Bundy is charged. Nita Neary, a member of Chayamega who was returning to the sorority house the night of the attack, also had reported seeing a man come down the stairs and exit the front door. She was able to give a good, strong description, said Larry Simpson, lead prosecutor in the Chayamega trial. Nita Neary did meet with an artist and drew a sketch of the person that she saw leaving the Chayamega house. It looked like Mr. Bundy. Bundy was charged in an indictment with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. During the trial, prosecutors presented eyewitness testimony and said that Bundy's hair matched fibers found in a pantyhose mask and that a bite mark left on Levy could only have been made by Bundy. Prosecutor Larry Simpson told ABC News, "I think the bite mark itself is indicative of the primal rage that Mr. Bundy must have been in at the time he committed those murders. It was just a total homicidal rage. I thought a lot about the parents of the girls that were killed during the prosecution of this case. It's one of the things that kept me going, he said. On July 24, 1979, Bundy was convicted and sentenced to death for the murders of Bowman and Levy, of Chandler, Kleiner, and Thomas. Then in January of 1980 in Orlando, Bundy stood trial for the kidnapping and murder of Kimberly Leach. The evidence against Bundy in the Leach case ranged from eyewitness testimony and fibers to hotel receipts from Lake City. According to the prosecutor in that case, Bob Devlin, Bundy was convicted and again sentenced to death. Excuse me. On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison for Kimberly Leach's murder. Days before his execution, Bundy confessed on tape to authorities to 30 murders in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, and Florida between 1973 and 1978. Authorities, however, suspect he may have killed many more, as many as 100. Kleiner recalled her feelings immediately after the execution. Remember sitting on the sofa with my fiance and crying and wailing and crying and feeling that Lisa and Margaret were finally at peace, she said. Thomas told ABC News that being a rare survivor of Ted Bundy, it makes me feel like I have to represent those women who did not survive. Thomas told ABC News that being a rare survivor of Ted Bundy makes me feel like I have to represent those women who did not survive. And I hope that I always can do that because I don't want them to die. Chandler said of Bowman and Levy, all you can do is just celebrate that they were there and that you knew them and they will always be in our memory. So let me play a video. Okay?
There isn't anybody who grew up here that is of a certain age that doesn't have a Ted Bundy story. His presence here is huge.
It's such an amazing story that touches on so many things.
It is part of the history of the Pacific Northwest. It's part of the history of criminal justice in the United States. It's a story worth telling.
Who was this young man in the Pacific Northwest?
The son we raised was a person.
He was the perfect young man. Empathetic, sympathetic, ambitious.
He knew how to flatter people. He knew how to win their trust.
He was good looking and charming and seemingly had the world in his grasp and was going to be a successful guy.
There were two Bundys. The only people that ever saw the diabolical Bundy were his victims.
There was the personality that was the fake, and then there was the personality that was the killer. I think we definitely have to be careful to not romanticize people like Ted Bundy.
I never wanted to think people were born evil, but my opinion about that changed when I met Ted. I think he was just born evil.
Seattle was a smaller, more innocent place back then. I mean, women were moving about in ways that were probably more autonomous. The women's movement was, in full early flower then.
It was a time when many women were feeling very independent. So people didn't think right away that a woman who hadn't been seen for a few days might have fallen into harm's way.
When you look at Ted Bundy, he was about the right age to be in college. He drove a Volkswagen Beetle, very, very popular car in the 70s. And so when he moved into a college campus, he just fit right in. That was disarming to his victims. Like, he should be here. He looks like one of us. He drives one of our cars.
I remember being with Ted and driving up the road and just having a great time. And they have a lot of man-made little lakes in the middle of Seattle, and we'd go out and lay there and go swimming. I liked talking to Ted. He was an intellect, and we talked a lot about political things and how they ran the government and things like that.
He graduated in June of '72 from the University of Washington with a degree in psychology.
Why does he get a degree in psychology? From my view, he does that because he wants to be able to continue to manipulate people.
One of his activities was to be involved in political campaigns.
Governor Dan Evans was brought down to the aisle and given a tumultuous welcome.
He worked for the committee to reelect Dan Evans. He had aspirations. He went to law school. I mean, he was thought to be sort of a rising star in the Republican Party in Washington State.
People thought he was going to be, a young Ted Kennedy, but for the Republican Party. But again, they saw an exterior that he worked hard to create, this facade. I think a number of things conspired to make Ted Bundy Ted Bundy. He was filled with rage at his mother. Ted was illegitimate. There were a lot of things for Ted to be angry about. When you look at the childhood of serial killers, there are some common themes, and I see it's case where there's dysfunction in the family, and what happens is they grow up with a lot of rage, typically towards women. He wanted to be from a family that had money, and he wasn't. It's another sort of check mark to use against his mother that she didn't marry somebody wealthy, so he didn't have to go out and steal to look wealthy.
This is a guy who, from the earliest age, was a petty thief.
He talks about having been a peeping Tom at some point.
The idea that Ted Bundy was involved in peeping actually makes sense because it's basically a training ground about how you isolate people, how you watch people, how you get into houses.
He was a night person. He would get restless, get in his car and drive for great distances. So he was a roamer, always.
One thing we know is that as a youngster, that this very early warning sign about people who become killers, about mutilating animals, he was doing that. Animal mutilation is really fairly common in people who end up being serial killers just because it's a fascination with death. But part of him longed to be with somebody or a part of something, part of a family. He had this long-time girlfriend who had a child that he spent a lot of time with them.
Elizabeth Cluffer was a young mother, and she was just getting over a terror relationship. One day she meets a charming stranger in a bar. It's Ted Bundy. They start having an incredible relationship in her mind. I went to go meet with Liz, and Liz brought out these photo albums. And I'm thumbing through these photo albums. It's this happy family unit. There's pictures of these three people camping, birthday parties, skiing. There's the young daughter. There's Elizabeth Klupfer, and there's Ted Bundy.
When he was with Liz, he said he really enjoyed being a family man. He said the things that, I would expect my brother to say about his family.
People are complicated, and Bundy was too. He was also somebody who had impulses, or at least wanted to appear as a helpful, benign member of society and contribute.
One day in Seattle, when Ted was at Northgate Mall, and he was coming out of the mall and saw a young man grab a woman's purse, and Ted took off after him.
He managed to go and physically restrain the offender until law enforcement got there.
Got the woman's purse back and her $30 that was in her wallet. He was ultimately sort of written up as a quote unquote hero. He's really big on I want attention, and that's a way to get it, obviously.
But as the years rolled on, he determined that, no, I'm never going to be married. I'm never going to have children. I'm never going to be a governor. I'm never even going to be an attorney. I'm just going to murder. And this is what makes 1970 extremely different. He determined he's going to launch himself into full-time murder, and he's just going to keep doing it until he was captured or killed.
Okay. So let's kind of just go over some of what I read and some of what was in the video, right? Because the goal is if we can identify, okay, I just want to pull it up so you guys can see me. So I'll try to move over. Blocking him. If we can identify some of the traits, if we can identify some of the traits that some of the serial killers possess, we can glean in to the personality what some of the behaviors would be, right? Just considering what I read and what you just heard, let's go over some of that. Excuse me. Trying to hang in here with this cold. So some of the traits that we can learn from with Ted Bundy, and then we can apply this as a mirror and the things we learn with criminal justice in the history of various serial killers, we can take those traits and cast out a mirror for future behavior, future actors. One of the first things that I wrote down as notes and listening and reviewing and reading about Ted Bundy, there was definitely some childhood trauma. Just like anybody else, you're going to have challenges. But his challenges were family issues, various conflicts, and over time, his anger, it built up and it grew. And a lot of that anger was focused on women. And he inflicted that anger on his victims, primarily all women. Now, in his childhood, if you have some type of dysfunction and you never really get help, in his case, you can see it in what they consider to be like almost like a dual personality. Very charming, very flattering. People like you, but you might also possess some antisocial behavior. And that is really Ted Bundy trying to wear a mask. He's concealing a large part of society. This is that part of himself which has the evil intent. I believe that some of the behaviors that he possessed, for example, when he had been through college. Um, he also was educated and he had some political ambitions. But it was very hard for him to make commitments. So he wasn't the type of person that was going to commit to a family. Um, he wasn't going to have some family center. He would leave his daughter behind because his real focus, something that he could just was murder. So he was never going to marry. He was never going to be just a family-oriented man. Some of the behaviors that he possessed when he was younger, he was a peeping Tom. He admitted to that. He wanted to spend his time watching people, surveilling them. He wanted to learn their habits. He wanted to see how he could isolate them. When would they be alone, right? A part of that also was his late night driving. In the dark, in the cover of dark, some criminals feel like this is the time to be out where you can watch. You can surveil people. You can figure out their habits when they're alone. Various deviant behaviors. Um, I think that because he did not come from a family with money, and this is somewhat heard in the video, I think that he resented some of that and maybe his mom not picking a better father for him so he wouldn't have to struggle. He wouldn't have to be, he wouldn't have to do things like steal. He focused more on his ambitions, his intellectual abilities. He had a psychology degree, so he was a thinker, he was a speaker. He used his charm to build trust with people. Again, the two parts of his personality, he's able to blend in. He's young enough to have graduated, but still be able to go on college campus. Make a fit with those students. Driving a car that was presentable, things like that. I think overall he may have had a longing to have a family, but this was not something that he was capable of building because of his issues. Okay, his childhood dysfunction, all of the family conflict, the family issues. I want to highlight a few parts of the hearing that he had during the Chai Amigo case, where he received his sentencing. So let me go to some specific clips in that. Some of the things that he said at the hearing, and also I want to highlight what some of the things that the judge said to him. So part of okay, I apologize about that. Part of Ted Bundy's testimony, we know he was executed in 1989, and he was very eloquent. The judge even highlighted that he would be a great attorney because people saw him as a rising star, somebody that would be successful. But that was only on the exterior. Some of these serial killers, they work very hard with their exterior perception. They want people to receive them, that they're likable, that they're agreeable, that they're nice. They may do gestures, offer help. They may try to make their appearance be something where you're going to be comfortable around them, that you're not going to be fearful, that women will trust you, things like that. but they lack the ability of just coming across naturally. This is something that they have to work very, very hard at. They're basically creating a persona that they feel the public will be at ease and comfortable with. And this is something that Ted Bundy, he worked very hard at. So in the video, he comes off very smart, intelligent. He cracks jokes. He speaks well in different groups. So he's with the attorneys, but he's speaking as if he's an attorney representing himself. Just so many ways that he's putting on a persona, okay? But this is only one part that he wants you to see. There is another side, which is the serial killer side, that as hard as he can, he tries to keep that at bay, to keep that image down, to hide that from the public, from friends, from love interests, from women, right? So let me go to part of his testimony. One of the complaints that Ted Bundy had was the media was there at his trial and they were covering the trial, and he actually referred to them as bloodthirsty. He thought that they were intrusive, that the way they handled his family was not appropriate. He brought that up at his sentencing. So let me play a little bit of that. And I advise you, if you're interested in Ted Bundy or just criminal analysis or reviewing criminal cases, it may be helpful to watch the whole video, but I'm only going to play some small excerpts. So let me play this one. Okay.
It's a problem by my attorneys to keep the news media out of certain hearings. The coverage of the news media has been a constant threat to me and my attorneys in an attempt to prepare a defense. It has jeopardized and I think in fact succeeded in influencing the final outcome of this case. But the interference, or that is the coverage by the news media, it pertains to me, did not start with the filing of the indictment in this case. And their vilification of me and their attempt to make a celebrity or a notorious, infamous character me again July the 28th of last year. Although the court will recall seeing the videotape of the evening that Sheriff Casares read me the indictment.
Okay, so let's just pause it for a minute. You have to look at it from the stance of Ted Bundy. By the media being at trial, by them questioning him, and he plays to the media too. He talks to them, wants to talk to them. He wants to be out in the front and tell part of his story. But while in court, he doesn't want certain things to come out, right? Certain killers. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to turn this off so I won't get any more notifications. Certain killers, they do not want the evidence to be publicly revealed. For example, in a S assault, they do not want those details to be revealed about the S assault. They don't want the details of the assault out, so they get upset when the media is there to cover all the aspects. Sometimes there may be gruesome crime scene photos. They don't want the public to receive those. They want those to be sealed. They want those to not be revealed, not shown. They don't want them to talk about them. So just as well as he pans to the media to get in front, to tell his story, to talk and give his view, he also doesn't want to trial when the victims are testifying, when they're talking about how he attacked them, how he may have harmed them, how he bit them, things like that, the gruesome part, the gruesome pictures, any gruesome video, these type of killers, they don't want that out. So they will play to the media when it's helpful to them. And then they will say, well, the media was bloodthirsty. The media pursued my family, they touched my family, they showed the heinous pictures. Because remember, they're working with almost a dual personality. The personality they want you to believe is real, and then the serial killer side of them that comes out at trial, the things they have done, the terrible, heinous acts that they have committed on their victims, okay? So this is what his complaint is, and now he feels that the media has impeded on the case, has caused problems in the case, has made it difficult for him, that somehow he may not even be receiving a fair trial because all of the testimony is now going out to the world, what allegedly he did, how he killed, assaulted, attacked, beat, all of these women and some children, right? So I wanted you to hear that in Ted Bundy's words. He was very expressive, very talkative. He would go on and on as long as the judge allowed it. He would talk from his behalf. And now when he speaks of himself as a victim, that this is happening to me. And what about my rights? And what about protecting my family? And what about this evidence? Now this evidence is out because again, the of people, remember, we're focusing on the mindset. They don't want you to alter what they have shown you. The whole fake silhouette of their personality. Remember how kind they were, how they offered to help you, how they were there when you needed. It's all an act. It's all an act. And now all of their cards are coming crashing down on them. And it's pretty sad. And he's just like many other killers, they have the same mindset. So let's move on. Another part of what Ted Bundy talked about was he didn't like that the media was exposing his behaviors, his mannerisms, how he talked, how he would make jokes. Remember, we are looking at a trial where there are 2 women victims that are murdered and 2 that are beaten but still alive. And he's casually in the case hearings coming to court, doesn't want all of this revealed. So he's upset about that the media again is revealing this behavior. So let's listen to him talk about that some. Okay.
If we sat in here, as we often did, between 9 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night and have 7 hours of court proceeding, the news media people will take their 7 hours of tape and reduce it down to 5 minutes. And because of that out of context piece of tape makes the whole process unintelligible, incomprehensible, and sensational. And I think that hurts the system. I think that makes the court, makes me, makes my attorneys look kind of weird sometimes, saying things and acting in ways that don't seem to comport with a lot of people who believe that this is supposed to be a serious, stern proceeding. The news media loves entertainment. They're out there entertaining people with news, selling news. And this court, it's a good-natured court. And from time to time, there'd be a joke from the bench or a joke between counsel. And I'd see that that would be on the nightly news. Now, certainly, this is not a common proceeding. Far from it. I know the court realizes that. But what does that make people think about what's going on in here? When they see 5 minutes of laughing and joking and kicking around and everybody's having such a good time in this murder trial. Or if they take something else out of context. Testimony of whatever they do.
So again, they're going to make themselves try to appear that they're somehow the victim because the media is reporting the behavior, the mannerisms, the tone of the alleged suspect, right? He doesn't want that to be to the world, his behavior, how he's not taking things seriously, how he's cracking jokes, how he's laughing, how he's pretty much entertained, okay? Let's move on. There's a point where he does talk about how he feels that his attorneys that he experienced was called an ineffective counsel, that he feels that his counsel was not adequate, they were inexperienced, that he had issues with that and he raised them. So I want you to hear some of that. Again, woe is him. This is dead. This is dead. Okay, everybody. Sorry about that. My computer just died. I thought I had about 40 more minutes, but it died. So I'm gonna pick up where I was. Um, I was talking about how Ted Bundy felt that he was experiencing what's called an ineffective counsel. And I wanted to play that part of the video. So just give me just 1 minute. I'm gonna try to hurry up and catch it before.
I believe that being able to develop fully the evidence which supports my innocence, being able to develop fully the evidence which we have, which leaves, I think, create a reason that being able to have quality representation, having these things, I'm confident that I would have been in the event that I get a new trial will be acquitted.
Okay, I'm gonna speed up really quick on this part because this iPad is about to die too. The judge talks to him and he brings up just the savagery of the killings and how much pain he's caused. So I wanted you to hear that part and one more part, and then we'll be done with this video.
This court also invokes Chapter 78 through 18, now 947.16 of the Florida statute. That is to say that the court retains jurisdiction over the offender for review of any future release order for the Florida Parole and Probation Commission for 1/3 of the total consecutive sentences imposed in this case. The court finds that ample justification exists for the entry of an order by this court retaining jurisdiction over Theodore Robert Bundy for review of any further release order of the Florida Parole and Probation Commission in this regard specifically found that these crimes involved a burglary of a sorority house with 30 or more girls, wherein 4 were brutally beaten and with 2 being killed. That the girls in the sorority house no way participated in the suggestion of or consented to the entry for criminal acts. One case involved the entry into a private home, and one count wherein the sleeping victim, also a young girl, was left with 5 skull fractures. The defendant has a history of prior criminal activity. These crimes committed involved extreme savagery, indifference of human lives, and the infliction of agony and pain upon the helpless young women. The defendant has maintained a complete indifference to the commission of these acts, and the court hereby directs that the Florida Parole and Probation Commission to send to this court or its successor and to the state attorney notice as provided in Florida Statutes 947.16(2c) of any future release order of the commission.
Okay, I'm at 1%. I'm going to jump at the last part, which is the judge is talking to him and just saying how regretful he is that Ted Bundy is just so educated, so smart, so wise, would make a great attorney, right? But he wasted his life. He threw it away. He made the wrong decisions. And for that, he's going to, face his death penalty, okay? So listen to this.
Everybody remain seated. Hold on just a minute. The earlier request that I made concerning someone in my family to get out of here before the news meeting get on the file. Can we escort him out to that way? We'll take care of it. I'll get him to see you. Take care of yourself, young man. Thank you. I say that to you. Take care of yourself. It's a tragedy for this court to see it's such a total waste of humanity that I've experienced in this court. You're a bright young man. You made a good lawyer, and I'd love to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner. Take care of yourself. I don't have any animosity to you. Take care of yourself. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly share those things before the iPad dies as well. Everything's dying this morning, but I did have an early morning meeting, so I might have just used too much power. I don't know, but let's just get back focused, right? So the reason I'm bringing up Ted Bundy at this time, and I'm relating it to the Idaho 4 murders, and in particularly Bryan Kohberger, it is because it is my responsibility to bring forth anything that I feel can help connect behaviors. If we're seeing a history in the criminal justice world where we learn behaviors from serial killers, we have to take that knowledge and apply it, as I said, reflect it back, mirror it back. Do we see similar behaviors between, for example, the history of a Ted Bundy, the Chi Omega, in particular, the Chi Omega murders, right? Do we see something that we feel could connect, right? Something that I didn't bring up, there's usually some type of hurting of animals, torturing of animals. Now, I know in the Idaho 4 case,
a few weeks, and I shared that article, but I can't pull it up right now. Let me see. There was a few weeks before the murders, there was a dog that was found skinned that was nearby um, in Idaho. This was according to the New York Post. A couple's dog was killed and skinned just 3 miles away from where the 4 University of Idaho students were brutally slaughtered in their home. I'm reading this quickly because this device is going to go quickly, leading locals to fear a connection between the two attacks. Buddy, a 12-year-old mini Australian shepherd belonging to Pam and Jim Kohberger, was left with fur only on his legs and face when he was killed after they let him out their Moscow home on October 21st. So that was the month prior, okay, a few weeks prior. It was like a deer that someone had hunted, told the news outlet. They cut him around the neck and just skinned him. His little legs had fur, his little face had fur, but the rest of him was just skin. The other side of him was as though they had filleted him, like they were about to eat him. It was terrible, unbelievable. They cut him like you fillet a fish. We found his collar, but we didn't find the pelt. Okay? So this happened a few weeks before the Idaho 4 murders. And the reason I'm bringing it up again is because we want to reflect what we know the behaviors of serial killers are. And that is another thing before they graduate to actually attacking and unaliving a human adult. They may go to torturing first. They may do stalking first. I want to talk a little bit more about the stalking again and just go over that again. Stalking is something that a lot of killers and as assaulters will do first. This is where they gain the knowledge. They're able to hide in the dark, take a walk, take a long drive, stalk the victim, go by their house, see what they're doing, see what lights are on, see who's in the house. Get out the car, walk around the residence, maybe take video, take photo, take note, right? See what's happening. They want to start with the basics of the stalking. Um, See their activity, see if there's a pattern. What are the kind of things that they're doing? What are they spending their time doing? What time are they going to sleep? What time do they leave the house? They really want to gain knowledge. They want to know, when is that victim alone? So they're going to watch. They're going to watch their victim. They're going to follow their victim. They're going to learn the habits of the victim. This is what a lot of assaulters do, a lot of serial killers do, unless it's an impulse, right? Where it's just immediately happening with no effort, no prior stalking. They may have had some peeping Tom experience, looking through windows. They may have been caught. But at the end of the day, we can learn from the behaviors and we can compare. Was there any peeping Tom activity in the history of, for example, the suspect in the Idaho 4 case? Now with Ted Bundy, yes, he admitted to being a peeping Tom initially. He admitted to that. Okay, was there ever any stalking and any harassment? Was there ever any voyeurism, watching a person, finding out their schedule, showing up where they were? Would they ever have their eyes on one person? Do we have a history of that? In the Idaho 4 case, we have to take the behaviors that we know. We have an incident where the Idaho 4 case was on the sorority road, where it was all woman house, all women, not too far from the university campus, Chi Omega, all women, okay? It was a sorority house. We have to start considering, was this something that was it targeted? Was it impulsive? In the Ted Bundy case, we believe that it was impulsive, it was opportunity. A lot of times, is there a door unlocked? Is there a window open? From maybe just trying to pull on a door handle, trying to lift up a window. Um, in the Idaho 4 case, was it impulsive or was it something that was targeted? Was there planning before? Did someone just walk in? Did they open a door? At the Chiamega house, there was a combination lock on the door. At the Idaho 4 house, there's a combination lock on the door, but someone may know these sliding doors, they don't work. Let's try the second tier. Do we have the code? In the Chiamega house, I believe there was a door that was broken, and you can just walk right in. So there's some things that we can look at, some similarities, right, and try to glean from that. Um, the the suspect in Idaho 4 case, did they possibly have family issues? Was there conflicts? Was there childhood trauma, childhood dysfunction? Did they get along in the family? What was the family unit like? Did mom and dad, was there a presence? How was that home? How was that upbringing? In Ted Bundy's case, he definitely had dysfunction. He grew angry towards women. He felt that, he was coming up where he should have been off better financially. He was embarrassed about his income. He resented that he didn't come from a well-to-do family. Um, you know, what do we know about the Idaho 4 murders? Is that person potentially someone that carries these same issues, rage issues, anger against women? Was there some family problems, family issues? Was there issue with money in the family? Did they come from environment where their family maybe had to struggle? Were they maybe low income? Did they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Was there some financial struggles there in the home? And maybe there's some resentment for having to grow up and having to make your own way and not just having things handed to you. Is the family close? Are they apart? Um, how are they viewed in society? How is the family's structure? Things like that, right? Um, are the issues with wanting to elevate yourself, to be seen differently, to be felt important? What kind of ambitions did the person have? And Idaho 4 case, was this person educated? Did they come from an ambitious family background? If the killer or killers, they were on site, were they able to blend in? Were they able to blend into campus like Ted Bundy? He was youthful enough, he was older, but he was youthful enough to blend back into campus. Did he use flattery? Was he able to build trust? In this case with Idaho 4, did they know the suspect? Was the suspect very flattering? Did the suspect, were they able to build trust to get into the house? Did they fit into the college campus? Were they a college student? A lot of people wear a mask. You sometimes cannot distinguish what's fake and what's real. Are they wearing a mask? Are they concealing who they are? Are they trying to be like? Are they putting on a whole different appearance to make you feel comfortable? Did the person offer gestures? Can I help you? Is there something that I can do? Always being given, always being ready to help, and they want to appear. They want to appear that they are not dangerous. Is that what happened in Idaho 4 case? We know with Ted Bundy, he used all kind of ruses. He used a ruse that he was injured. Oh, I need help. Can somebody help me? Or he could be very flattering. He was a attractive man, so women would help him. They would respond to him. In Idaho 4 case, we're not sure yet because we don't have a conviction, but with some of these things happening in the case, that we can compare, we can look at. We know that Ted Bundy was educated, that he had a psychology degree, that he was pursuing higher education. He was pursuing law school. In Idaho 4 case, again, was this person also educated? Were they pursuing higher education? They're on a college campus. It makes it appear that maybe they were a student or a former student, right? If they were older. Were they ambitious? In Ted Bundy's case, he had his political ambitions. He was thought that he would excel in politics. This again is that face, but there's another side to him, right? That people don't know. Like his past with abducting women. Something else we could look at. What are the goals of the suspect in Ted Bundy's case? We know that he didn't want to marry. He didn't want to have that traditional family and be family oriented. He wanted to really focus, and what he did was he committed multiple murders. In Idaho 4 case, what is this person or person's life? Were they family oriented? Did they have a love interest? Did they have any kids? Did they live with a spouse or have a mate? Or were they focusing on planning this murder, executing this murder, getting away with murder? Is this the first murder? Again, we can go back to in the beginning. Was there a peep in time? Was there any behavior to mutilate, hurt animals? Did they have a fascination with death? You have to look at the mindset, right? Did they have rage against women? Did they have issues in their childhood? Were they getting along with their parents, their siblings? Did they come from a background where they were struggling, where they may hold some resentment, where they may feel that they should be more than what they are? Did they work hard to create a persona that people would feel at ease with, that they would feel threatened by? Were they fighting to rise in the ranks, become more popular, more successful? I know with Ted Bundy, it was important to him to talk about law school, and he liked to debate, and he could talk, and he could, bring up politics, and he volunteered on some of the political activities at the time. He was known. He was known in politics at that time as a rising and right. People thought that he was going to be very, very successful. Okay. And that's the scary part too, because there's a combination of various attributes, but then there's a concealed part of themselves. And this is what we see in killers and assaulters. Okay. So there's some similarities that we can look at in Idaho 4. We can kind of consider that as we look at history, behaviors, and things that we know happened in the past, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about the statement that Corporal Payne, he issued, specific pages. So if you want to follow along, I did want to post this about 17 pages. If you go online, you can get it. It's called Exhibit A, Payne. It's dated December 29, 2022. You can get it online. I don't want to post all of this online. Okay. So we're jumping right in because we're going to move forward and try to wrap up in a few minutes. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about on page 1 of the statement is that at approximately 4 p.m., the Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker and Payne, they responded to 1122 King Road. So we have a time, 4 p.m. Now he said, upon the arrival, he said the Idaho State Police forensic team was on the scene and preparing to start processing the scene. So 4 p.m. And then I'm going to abbreviate it, ISP. ISP was already on the scene to process the scene, okay? Now in paragraph 3, we want to jump now. Excuse me. trying to preserve a little bit of voice that I have from this cold. So I apologize. I want to bring up the point that in this statement, this is what is written. As I approached the room, I could see a body. So as he's approaching Zaina's room on the second floor, he could see her body. So that tells me that either her body was in the hallway or the door to the bedroom was open. Later identified as Kernurdles laying on the floor. Laying on the floor, so Zaina was on the floor, but we don't know exactly where. It says Kernurdle was deceased with wounds which appear to have been caused by an edged weapon, but we don't have the exact placement of her body. So we don't know if she was in the hallway, because remember, he's approaching the room. He's approaching Zaina's room, and he could see her body. And it was laying on the floor. So it could be right outside of the room in the hallway or in the room. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to page 2, paragraph 1. And this is regarding the dog, Murphy. I then follow Officer Smith upstairs to the 3rd floor of the residence. The 3rd floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee. I later learned there was a dog in the room. So Murphy was in Kaylee's room. Okay. When Moscow police officers initially responded. That's all I wanted to tell you. Murphy was in Kaylee's room. Let's jump down to paragraph 2. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed in the room. 2 females in the single bed. So there's 1 bed, 2 females in the room. And that would have been Kaylee and Maddie. And they were deceased with visible stab wounds. Then I'm going to give you the exact words from here. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Morgan's right side. So next to Maddie. And this is him viewing it from the door. So he hasn't stepped into the room. He's looking into the room from the doorway. He's seeing Kaylee and Maddie in 1 bed, and he's seeing allegedly the knife sheath next to Maddie's right side. How he saw all that from that doorway, I have no idea. But okay. Let's jump down to paragraph 3. 2 of the interviews included BF and DM. Now these are the unharmed roommates. Both BF and DM were inside the King Road residence at the time of the homicides and were roommates to the victims. BF's bedroom was located on the east side of the 1st floor of the King Road residence. So I just highlighted this because they did interview both roommates. Okay, that's the point of highlighting that. Just want to make a note on here. Okay, let's go to page 3. On the evening of November 12th, Chapin and Kernurdle are seen by BF at the Sigma Chi House on the University of Idaho campus from approximately 9 p.m. I'm not going to read every word. I'm sorry. I'm trying to preserve my voice. I apologize. From approximately 9 p.m. November 12th to 1:45 a.m. So they're saying that Bethany saw Ethan and I'm not sure why I'm having a brain freeze. I'm having a brain freeze, but he saw Ethan and his girlfriend between 9 p.m. Saturday to 1:45 a.m. So basically, Bethany Ethan and his girlfriend, Zayna, they were all together at the party until 1:45 p.m. Okay, so Bethany, Ethan, and Zayna, they're together from 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. at Sigma Chi. Okay, now I just want to highlight. They say a private party, they took the name out, reported that he provided a ride to Maddie and Kaylee at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow, from the grub truck basically to the house on King Road. Okay, so DM and BF, so that's Dylan and Bethany, they both made statements. And I'm sure they interviewed them separately. That would be normal typically. That indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were home by 2 a.m. So all residents, including Ethan, because he wasn't a resident technically, were home by 2 a.m. And they said and asleep, or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. So everybody's in the house by 2 a.m., in the house, in their room, or asleep by 4 a.m. Okay. Now, this is with the exception of Zayna. Zayna received a DoorDash order at approximately 4 a.m. I would like to know if this was received by her. Excuse me. It's cold, ain't no joke, y'all. I apologize, y'all. I'm almost finished. I'm trying to hang in there. Whew. So I want to read something else that's on page 4. Sorry. Dylan stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. She said she was awoken at 4 a.m. by what she said sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms. My apologies. So she thought she heard Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which she was referring to the third floor.
She said she thought she heard Kaylee say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Now she's on the second floor. Kaylee's allegedly on the third floor. It says a review of records obtained from a forensic download of Zaina's phone showed this could also have been Zaina, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using TikTok at approximately 4:12 a.m. Now remember, there was no more activity on the phone of, Kaylee and Maddie after 2:52 a.m. So is it likely that that would have been Kaylee or Maddie if they're not using their phone and they're technically, know what happened after 2:52 a.m.? Because remember, this is about 4 a.m. I believe this was Zaina. Next paragraph, paragraph number 2. Dylan stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. She stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying from Zaina's room. So now, allegedly, Zaina is now crying. Then she said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." You know, I thought about this more and more. And when I think about the phrasing, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," sounds like law enforcement. It sounds like the police or ambulance services. "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Why would you say something like that? Who would say something like that? "I'm going to help you." That's typically phrasing that you use to calm somebody down. So I'm concerned about that. Paragraph 3, at approximately 4:17 a.m., security cameras located at 1122 King Road picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times, starting at 4:17 a.m. And this camera is less than 15 feet away from Zaina's bedroom wall, the west wall. Paragraph 4, Dylan stated she opened her door for the third time and she heard the crying. So she's hearing Zaina still crying. This is the third time she opens her door and she saw a figure clad in black clothing. I still don't think she wrote this. Sounds like law enforcement. And a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She described him as 5'10" or taller male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan as she stood in a frozen, shocked face. Walked past. That's hard to believe. We won't even go over that again. The male walked toward the back sliding glass door. Dylan locked herself on page 5 in her room after seeing the male. Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. Paragraph 1 for page 5. The combination of Dylan's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from Bethany and Dylan's phone. So they did download Bethany and Dylan's phone. That's all I cared about. I didn't want to talk about anything else because they talk a lot about the car and all of that. And I shared a video earlier today about technology for track through the cell phone, from the cell phone data. From the video I watched two, one particular YouTuber. This is the second time saying absolutely they cannot pin the exact location for that, to be able to track that cell phone. And that's if the cell phone is turned on. So how can you track it if Bryan Kohberger turned the cell phone off? So, you know, that's something to think about. Overall, I didn't want to talk much specifics about Bryan Kohberger. When I'm reviewing some old foul information on Ted Bundy, I do see a lot of similarities. I can see, highlight just a few. From what has come out, I was always concerned that dog that was skinned. The police said there was not a connection, or the news media said that there was not a connection allegedly. I thought about, hey, the mutilation of animals, because I know that's something that has been known in the pattern of series. I've seen some interesting things said about Bryan Kohberger's family, the sisters, what they have studied, what they do for a living, just that there may be some family issues, conflicts, dysfunction, allegedly. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's out there. Clearly, the driving at night, this is something that Ted Bundy did. And of course, we know in the alibi that Bryan Kohberger provided, this is something that he allegedly said he does and he had been doing. And why? Why the late night driving? Okay. I've already explained in this video, you know, what happens with some of these SS authors and serial killers, what they do for the late night time. Excuse me. And talk a little bit about the peeping Tom of voyeurism. There had been stuff that came out about Bryan Kohberger, and I'm going to say allegedly some stuff about him and helping a coworker, and they're saying that there may be a case that comes forward, a charge that comes forward for some possibly stalking. Things like that, the peeping Tom type of activity, and I guess it's about, again, the psyche, you know, wanting to appear helpful, to appear trusting, that you're not dangerous, that you're an acceptable member of society, things like that. You know, always crafting that image, things like that. So there's just things that I can see and glean. Just from flashing back and, you know, looking at Ted Bundy and just how hard he tried to work on creating this certain image, you know, him fighting to be a rising star, to be seen differently. You know, how he felt, you know, he didn't want the media coverage. He didn't want cameras in the courtroom. Just things like that. And with these very heinous crimes, the child mega with Ted Bundy, and now allegedly Bryan Kohberger being a potential suspect and murderer in Idaho 4 case, you know, we can look at these things, compare these things, talk about them, look at the history. You know, it's just important for us to highlight behaviors, you know, that these people are wearing two faces. The fake them and then the serial killer side of them, you know, trying to build trust, trying to be flattering, trying to assimilate into society, you know, fit into a college campus, even though you're a little bit older, you know, be able to integrate, you know, come across very intelligent, very smart, very witty, charming, the background, you know, studying things in the social science, psychology, you know, pre-law, political science, subject matter like that, trying to understand behavior, because part of it is they're trying to understand themselves. I think, you know, just great talkers and thinkers. So I just wanted to bring some of that to you. I apologize for still being under the weather, still trying to bring you content, but yes, I am sick, so I apologize. Hopefully I'll be better soon, right? So thanks for sticking it out with me. Thanks for checking out this video. Check out some of my other videos. Remember to be smart, safe, stay savvy, and take care. Okay, enjoy your Saturday. Thanks for checking out this video. Okay, have a beautiful Saturday. Bye, friends. Bye, everybody.